12s, and welcome to the Seahawks 360 podcast, a Sports Ethos production. We look at the Seahawks from every angle every week, and I'm your host, Candace Higgins.
No, I'm Tino Ganasius.
And we are back. After a week break, we have a ton of information to cover, going over all of the training camp storylines that have happened so far, where we were right, where we were wrong, what's happened in between. That was a surprise. So let's get into it. As we record tonight, we have just got breaking news recently that Connor Williams, a center out of Miami Dolphins, has signed with the Seahawks on a $6 million one-year deal. $3 million of that is guaranteed. I'm assuming the other $3 million is going to be based on incentives and things. And for those who are not familiar with the situation, Connor Williams is a elite and pretty top line offensive lineman. I think he would have been in free agency. He would have been probably the top guy, to be frank, if he was fully healthy. But he had a really bad tear. Apparently, there were a lot of rumors about if he would medically retire, or just, people assumed that he would take a while to recover. His agent, Drew Rosenhaus, granted, take it with a grain of salt, but his agent did say it's one of the more miraculous recoveries he's ever seen. And we have seen it. I mean, we saw with Jordan Brooks last year, one of those miraculous type ACL recoveries, and that seems to be what he experienced now. Does he look the same, or does he look this anywhere close to what he was before? It's obviously going to be a question mark, but for if that doesn't happen, if he doesn't look healthy, in my opinion, then you're only spending $3 million. So $3 million for a starting caliber, all pro level type center. This is really, in my opinion, one of the best offensive line signings we've had in years. So I'm super excited. Connor Williams, a Seahawk, on cloud nine. Tino, how you feeling?
I'm good with it. You know me, if anything we can do to improve the line and on either side is a good thing. I think, that's how you win ball games, right? And we know that's the football that Mike McDonald wants to play. I love that he's a really good run blocker. I know that's what he graded out as better with. He helped break all those big Miami Dolphins runs last year. That's amazing. You always wonder if the injuries are a bigger deal, right? And so that's not something that I'm taking lightly. I think he came at a discount for a reason. And Drew Rosenhaus is, you can take 50-50 whether he's telling the truth or not most of the time. But, what I appreciate, and this has been a theme for us the last couple of podcasts, is they're continuing to try to get better, right? They're working on whether it's on the margins or in the middle of the offensive line, they know they need to get better. Right. They know that there are places to improve. And as much as I loved Oluwatimi and how well he played at Michigan and being the Remington Award winner and all that, fact of the matter is, if the Seahawks don't believe in him, he shouldn't be starting. And I don't know if it's that they don't believe or they just felt like there was an upgrade. But the other thing is he's flexible, right? Say something happens to a guard. You can slide Oluwatimi in now at center and you move Connor Williams to guard and you have a very high caliber player at guard. So I love it. It's me, I love the line. I love, winning in the trenches, and it was to me, that's a home run. And at $3 million, it's absolutely a risk you have to take.
Right. Yeah, completely agree. I mean, at that price, I'm even if it goes bad, even if he looks terrible, I mean, that was something that you had to do. Like, for one, like you said, the mindset, I think, is encouraging more than anything else. I mean, how many seasons have we gone into with a glaring hole at a spot on the roster? And I can say that they've made attempts to fix any holes that exist that they may see on the roster. And it doesn't mean the roster is going to be perfect, obviously, but there's not this massive blind spot and it always comes back to bite them. So I think the coaching staff is pushing John they're not accepting what's just good enough. They are really pushing the limits on what we're going to be. We're going to do our best to be the best. And you got to love that. As you sort of hinted at, Connor Williams graded out last year since 2022, he grades out at number 2 in run blocking. Like you said, he actually graded out higher than Trent Williams in run blocking, which is incredible. He also graded out at 4th, according to PFF, and pass blocking. So he's really good at both. I think it's balanced enough for me. All the movement that happens on that Miami team, you feel good about his mobility if he can be anything close to what he was. And in my opinion, even if he's not, I still probably think it's an upgrade. If they felt the need to go out and make this move, if Nick Harris was truly pushing Olu, if no one was really claiming that center spot, don't just pick amongst the low level. I mean, go upgrade that spot. If no one's taking it, if no one's, I thought Olu was given every opportunity. I mean, he's been
Sure.
given all the starter reps up until this point in training camp, and so if he wasn't taking it, man, you gotta look in other directions. And I lean towards the side that Connor Williams, from what his campus said, and that's obviously with a grain of salt, he did choose not to want to worry with free agency and that whole hassle until he felt like he was healthy enough.
Right.
So I think he probably could have been negotiating with teams early in free agency if he wanted to, but he did not want to, not knowing how his health would be. So um
I'm gonna assume that him signing a 1 year deal is also him trying to kind of not like rehabilitate, not rehabilitate himself, but reestablish his health along
Yep.
with the play so that he can sign that longer term deal
Yep.
next year. I would have liked to have seen a couple of years, but I
Right.
understand why he would want the 1 year deal with the Hawks.
Yep.
I also wonder, if he's, a better run blocker than a pass blocker. And that's not that I'm not knocking his pass blocking ability, but he graded out very highly as a run blocker.
Mhm.
If you take that and then you look at, what Tomlinson, you got these big guards, right? And Tomlinson and Bradford, who are likely your starters. Do you think that says something about the direction they're going as an offense, or do you still believe that, with do you still believe that they're going to attack through the air as much as we talked about?
I
Does it
think
change it at all?
I think they I think they're fixing a glaring hole. I think the run defense, the running game was just non-existent on the offensive line. Like they just could get no holes. And pass protection, while needing a lot of improvement, Geno Smith seemed to be able to work around. Kenneth Walker was not able to work around the lack of opportunities, that the lack of push at the line of scrimmage. So while everybody keeps referencing this pass game, so I don't think that everybody's just saying that and making it up for no reason. I
Sure.
do think they intend to use pass protection. But I heard something interesting over the offseason. They talked about how back in Washington, that Ryan Grubb would, even if they were just rushing four, oftentimes use multiple. They used a lot of, basically they did max protect, even
They
if
did
they
a
was, even
ton.
if just for conservative
They
rushes.
did a ton.
So
Mhm.
my guess is they plan to do that, some level of that, to they feel like they can scheme the pass game better
Sure.
than the run game, which I think makes sense, and we'll see if it works out ultimately. But I appreciate them trying to be balanced. Ryan Grubb, when asked about the run game and the issues last year, he kind of stood up for Waldron and said there just wasn't the push on
Right.
the offensive line. And so I think they're adjusting accordingly.
Yeah. It's I still I don't know. I don't know what to believe right now, but you had Mike McDonald talking up Kenneth Walker today. I think it was today or yesterday. And I do think they're going to play with balance. I think they'll be even more balanced than some other teams.
Mm-hmm.
Most other teams, in fact. And I like that, right? But yeah, getting back to the Williams signing, I think he slots everyone into the appropriate place, I think, for their talent, right? If Nick Harris is your backup center, I think Harris does end up being the backup. I think Olu still stays on the team, but say Olu and Harris are your two backups on the interior line. That's a good place to be, right? They are. You could argue they're starting caliber. You could argue that they're really good backups. Whatever they are, that's a good place to be, right? It allows for, if one of them has to play center, it allows for Williams to play guard, which may slot Tomlinson or Bradford into the more appropriate spot, right? Which is maybe a third guard. It gives Haynes more time to develop. It's just, I love it. And I really, I was as excited as you were to see that they had signed him, and I think they were one player short on that line. And now, we can I don't even want to say George Fant's name, but we can
We got
yeah,
to. We have absolutely got to.
eventually we
It's
will.
unavoidable.
Eventually we will.
We'll get to him next, but we absolutely have to. I just want to throw this out there.
Sure.
It's a little crazy. I'll get a little crazy. All
Mhm.
right. All right. Olu's, we know his strength is pass protection.
Sure.
Is it possible that he is able to push Lincoln at left guard? Yeah,
I
we know
don't
he doesn't have much experience in that area, but just based off of his strengths and his game,
I
he
think
would
I
be
think
more useful in that role.
what they would do is I think if they felt like Olu is a better fit on the line than Tomlinson, I think that they would put Olu at center and play Williams at guard because Williams was drafted as a guard and has played so much guard in his career. That's what I would guess would happen. But I do think, but I think you're right as far as like you get the best five guys on the line that you have and you play them, right? You figure out where they fit best. That's what I think. That's what I think would be. That's the smart thing to do, and I think that's what they would do. Can
I
I? Can,
I do hear that's kind of what I was hoping they would do it first, but
Mhm.
the more came out, initially I was hoping that he would take left guard
Sure.
out of Lincoln's hands, but it doesn't seem like that's the case. It seems like he really pushed for a center, and that
Yeah.
I think that was a deciding factor between him and Baltimore. He did have some interest in the Ravens, but they
Sure.
have Tyler Lindenbaum, who is a really really good center or top center in
Former
this
first
league
round
as
pick. Yeah.
well. So I think that was a deciding factor because of that. I'm
Mhm.
leaning that they won't move him to left guard just to honor his wishes and like but obviously it's a 1 year deal, so they want to make good on their word. But I would have liked that personally.
Yeah. If I was Hawks management, I would sign him. And maybe this says too much about me, but I would sign him. And if the better fit is at guard, he's on a 1 year deal. Like, put him at guard. I get why I don't know if the wear and tear is any different at center, but I do get that, like, he really did stand out as a star
Yeah,
playing center when he wasn't necessarily a star at guard. And
right.
so he probably also realizes that he's better than the field at center, and he's
Yeah.
not quite that guy at guard.
Yep.
Um, Whatever the case may be, the fact that, and this is what I wanted to ask you, like, how excited are you for one? And two, how much do you think the influence of Pete Carroll made this happen or not happen that they're trying so hard to improve on the margins, right? Get the edges like Mike McDonald talked about. Is this a McDonald influence? Is this getting Pete Carroll away from the team? Why do you think they're so focused on incremental change, positive incremental change to make the team better? Because I don't feel like this was something that they really did in the past nearly as much as they're doing this offseason.
I think it's McDonald. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
frankly, I think John respects the coaches and
Mm-hmm.
he sees his job as doing whatever the coaches need him to do.
Mm-hmm.
And I think he operates accordingly. Not to say that he doesn't have his own opinions, he obviously does, but especially for a first time head coach that he fought for and is so excited for, I think he wants to give Mike McDonald what he needs to
Mm-hmm.
succeed. He doesn't want to have any qualms about that. I think he wants to give Ryan Grubb, who's his first time in the NFL, what he needs. I think he understands that these guys are new at this and his job, he's experienced. His job is to put them in the best position. And so I think if they ask, he's going to at least try. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what it seems like he's been able to do here. So shout out to John.
I love it. I totally agree. I think that's a great point, and I that's exciting to me. I think when you have synergy between coaches in front office, that's when you start to see like real magic happen, right? And when they're working together and they're not competing and they don't have competing ideas, they don't feel threatened by one another. And that's what this looks like to me. We've all worked in environments where it's felt that way, and it's amazing. And
Yep.
so I don't know. I am very excited about it. And to go from serviceable to potential all pro is pretty cool.
Yep.
at a position that has an impact on every play offensively. It's to me it was an amazing signing. It was probably the best news of the offseason as far as I'm concerned. That and Gino being healthy.
Fair. Fair. Yeah. To your point, we'll move on to other storylines. We did have a scare, a Geno injury there. It never to me sounded too serious, but from all the reports, Sam Howell is struggling in training camp, and there is a clear difference between Sam Howell and Geno Smith. I don't want to spend a ton of time on that because I don't think that really. I mean, if everything goes right, we don't see Sam Howell, but do you have any thoughts on Sam Howell? I'm a little disappointed in sort of, thinking that he would have. I didn't ever think that this was a competition, and I didn't particularly see Sam Howell as a quarterback of the future personally, but I did expect a little bit more upside for their pick, and it's still time, so it's not necessarily a write off Sam, but I definitely I would have liked to at least have some optimism that he could be a guy in the future.
All right. New offense, new coaches. You know how the age difference between Geno Smith and Sam Howell is 10 years, right?
Yeah.
They're 33 and 23 years old. When Geno was first drafted, Geno was terrible. Geno was terrible with the Jets. Geno was terrible with the Giants. He had basically almost washed out, right? He was not considered a viable option as a starting quarterback. He stayed on as a backup, as we know, and now he's the starter. And so what I would say is, I trust NFL talent evaluators. And the NFL talent evaluators said that multiple teams were after Sam Howell. A lot of teams were after him. And they weren't necessarily after him as a starter presently, but they were after him as someone they could develop into a starter. So there are very good traits that are there. I'm not surprised, right? So you go to, and this isn't an excuse, but you go to school in Carolina, you play in DC, you're across the country, you're 23, you've now changed teams, you went from starter to backup, you're going to a different type of offense in a different organization. That's a lot of change, right? And so it's just training camp, which can mean any number of things. We've seen plenty of people struggle in training camp and be great in the regular season. We've seen plenty of people be great in training camp and terrible in the regular season. So it has not changed my opinion about Sam Howell at all. I still feel like he's the heir apparent until the Seahawks find a better option. Meaning, if it's Geno for this year or next year, or Geno this year, and they don't luck into a developmental quarterback or draft one in the first round, I'm happy with Sam Howell. I still think he can be an above average starting quarterback in the NFL. This doesn't impact my opinion about him.
I'm not there. And I'll tell you why. Not because he can't grow, because I completely agree with you. He can definitely grow. I wasn't familiar with Sam Howell's game, just frankly. And now that from reports of what I'm hearing, he is a type of quarterback that I'm no longer a fan of. And that's one, smaller. He's had a ton of balls tipped at the line of scrimmage, from what I understand. Seeing over linemen seems to be an issue. Don't want to relive that. Two, he's an improv guy without the athleticism that Russell Wilson had. And I just, I love Russ.
He is very athletic, though. He is very, very athletic.
But he's not Russ.
If I'm getting a poor man's Russ, I don't want 5'5" either. He's also not 5'5". I get Russell's like 5'9". No, Russell's 5'9", 5'10".
Yeah, but is he not much taller?
No, he's like 6'1".
Yeah, that's not.
I'll look it up right now. But 6'1" is different than 5'5".
Yes, technically it is different, but not functionally. I mean, yeah, maybe. But if he played like that wasn't an issue, then I feel better about it. But I just don't like that style, that improv, the guy who thrives in chaos. I have no doubt that I think he will look better in preseason than he has in anything he's done in training camp. Sure. I think he can use that athleticism. I think he can run, but because of that, he gets sacked way more, and because of that, his offensive line gets put in bad positions. I just don't want a quarterback of the future with that style.
I will say though, he had a terrible line and not as many skilled players in his final year at North Carolina. And he had no help in Washington. So the question is he a quarterback that, as you said, thrives in chaos, throws late, all those things? Or is that a product of the players that were around him? I think NFL teams see him as a work in progress and someone who has not been surrounded by talent and put in a position to succeed. You could argue he was absolutely not put in the position to succeed with Washington. And if he's surrounded by better players and protected better with the line, that he has the arm talent and the intelligence to be a very productive quarterback. That's where I fall, is he's had crap for players around him. He just has, right? He said
I'm not gonna
like
say crap. I think
Jahan Dotson was like the
wideouts. You
best.
could do worse.
Dotson was the best wideout on that team.
You
Ryan
don't like Terry
Robinson,
McLaurin?
what's that?
You don't like Terry McLaurin?
He's
Scary
fine.
Terry?
He's done all. He's not. He wouldn't
For a guy
start.
who's only has had really bad quarterback play, I think he's really productive.
All three Seahawks. I would argue all three Seahawks receivers are better receivers than McLaurin, right? I would argue.
I give
or two. Okay, two of three. Then that's fine.
Yeah,
I would argue the Seahawks had a better line,
mm-hmm.
and Brian Robinson and Antonio Gibson are not.
Yeah,
they are average at best, right? Those two running backs are average at best. So plus, it's a dysfunctional organization in Washington, or was when Sam Howell was there, with a coach in Ron Rivera who was on the hot seat the entire time. So you take that plus a final year at Carolina where he wasn't surrounded by a ton of talent. I think he is better than what he's shown because he wasn't surrounded by the right talent and because he wasn't coached well. Does that mean that he's damaged goods? It might be. He might be damaged goods because he hasn't had the time to throw. But I would like to see, because of the arm talent, I would like to see how he does when he's surrounded by better players. You could make this a similar argument with Geno Smith, where you say with the Giants and the Jets, he didn't have a ton around him. And even with the Seahawks, if he didn't have that talent around him, how good would he be? Right. I think that Geno Smith is great, but I also think he has above average running backs and at least two above average wide receivers, one of whom is considered elite, right? That's what helps him be better. And I think that's the case with any quarterback outside of Mahomes.
Yeah, and I would 100% agree with you if my conclusion was based off of anything from Washington, but it's not. It's really not. It's based on him playing with the ones, right?
But he's 23 years old, who's changed his entire life, who is the age of a senior. If he was drafted as a senior, right? Like if most quarterbacks are drafted at 22 as a senior in college. Any football player is, right? So imagine this is either year one or year two of his career. He's a very young, experienced quarterback. This isn't a 26-year-old we're talking about. It's a 23-year-old. So I say you give him a couple of years in the organization and allow him to develop and create new habits and change the timer in his head and allow him to throw to great receivers. It's been how long? How many days of training camp so far?
Yeah, I think, what are we on? 13 or 14, something like that.
Sure. That's not enough to pass judgment on whether he's a viable option in the future, in my opinion. I would like to give him
if I was fine with his style, that's fine. But again, it's not based on result.
That's not his style, though. Any of us would be freaking out in the pocket if we didn't have no protection.
Yeah, but I'm not an improv person. You have to be.
I don't think he's an improv quarterback.
He has proven to be.
He is good. He is good under pressure. He's able to scramble. I wouldn't call him an improv quarterback as much as his first and second options are covered, and he's got to figure out what to do next. Right.
His first and second options in camp have been covered because he's late. So I don't know.
Yeah. Him being late, him being late is a thing. 100%. It's why he threw so many picks last year. That has to change. But I will bet you they are working hard to try to rewire him to get him to move through his progressions faster or get rid of the ball, right? That's something that they know they have to change. And fortunately for us, they have a lot of time to try to help him figure that out as well as long as they can keep Geno healthy.
I completely, I'll hear and understand people in the Sam Howell camp. I don't think I'll ever be in the Sam Howell camp. Now, I'm not actively against him like I was in the Drew Lock camp, but but Drew, like I felt like had a little bit more opportunity. But I will say, I like a certain type of quarterback. He just doesn't fit that. It's really a matter of preference for me. But if the kid goes out and he grows and he does well, then I'll be happy overall. But anywho, I don't think my hope is that we don't really have to see somehow.
I agree.
That's really what we're hoping for. And speaking of people that we hope not to see, you hope not to see George Fant. Oh, how's that for a segue?
Very nice.
So Abe Lucas has yet to be removed from the pup list, which at this time is not necessarily meaningful. It will be at the end of training camp or really when the season begins that if he is still on the pup list, that he has to miss 4 games. There was a report by Jake Fowler that came out on ESPN over the weekend that said that Abe Lucas, despite not having really practiced, he's doing kind of work on the sidelines and that sort of thing right now, that he should be ready to go by week 1. Um, I like to hear that personally, but I'm team. What I'd rather see him come on the field and stay on the field than rush him back and then he's got to go back out. So even if he would have been on the pup list, I would have been fine with that. Just because, like I said, I just want to see him come and then stay. Consistency for me and how he finishes is going to matter more than how he starts. But what are your thoughts? I know you feel strongly against George Fant and you never want to see him in life again. But how do
I didn't say all that. I
how
didn't
you
say all
feel? No,
that.
you didn't. You didn't. I'm just messing with
I,
you.
I think George Fant is a fine swing tackle. I think George Fant is not a great option as your starting right tackle going into the season. That's how I feel.
Yeah.
With and I may we went round and
Yes, we
round.
sure did.
Um,
No, I forgot to mention. I completely forgot he played for the playoff teams. He played in the playoffs last year for the
yeah.
Houston Texans. For whatever reason, I just kept thinking he came straight from the Jets.
Uh-uh.
Yeah. But
Um, I will believe that Lucas is. I'll believe it when I see it.
yeah,
I'm worried. You can count me as I was worried before, and I was hoping that I would be pleasantly surprised. I count me as really worried now, because this is literally the kind of thing where if they keep making up excuses, right? They keep saying, okay, he's working on the side and he's getting ready, and you don't never see the dude, right? And then they say, oh, he's retired, right? We've
who
seen
said
that. I've
that?
seen that. We've seen that. No, I'm saying we've seen that in other sports before, where it comes out that it's a degenerative thing, and the guy can't play anymore, right? That's where, to me, because he's missed so much time, and the way that it's clouded in I feel like a little bit of mystery. I'm worried. I'm worried about his ability to show up and play. And I think the fact that he missed so many games and that he's not still on the pup list is concerning, right? I wish they would have gotten another guy. I still stay with that. I'm worried. I'm super worried. And if they can't protect on that side of the line, that's not going. That's everything goes out the window. My opinion.
I'll say this. Is it possible that your trepidation
Mm-hmm.
has a lot to do with more how Pete Carroll used to handle injuries than this new regime? Because I feel like if this was a Pete Carroll thing, I would honestly be a little bit more concerned because Pete Carroll is so he'll give you kind of some BS to
Positive.
string you along. Yeah, like he'll kind of feed you some,
Sure.
very vague, I mean, the Chris Carson thing was he's working, you know what I mean? Like
But that's the
he
perfect. But that's a perfect example, though, right? That's the
but
perfect
that's
example
what
of
I
a
mean.
dude.
That this is a new regime, and I just don't think that you can think the same thing. Mike McDonald seems to be a straight shooter, man. The guy
What NFL
straight
team
shooter,
doesn't lie about injuries?
huh?
Which NFL team doesn't lie about injuries?
Mike McDonald, the guy was like, yeah, he did have a bit of a setback, but I mean, he was just as straightforward as you can get. I
I
just
give you
think
that.
that's so different. I don't think Mike McDonald's being vague about it. I just think he's like, yeah, he was a bit of a setback. Would have liked him here sooner, but he seems to like it'll still be fine. Maybe I don't have any other. No, he didn't say I should be fine, but he said I don't have any other update than that. I mean, he really is just being cut
Sure.
straightforward. And I like if you're looking at it from a Pete Carroll lens, I much better understand your trepidation
I'm
because
not. I'm not. I'm looking at it
I think you have a
through an
PTSD
Abe
lens.
Lucas injury lens, which is dude ain't been healthy in a long time.
Yeah,
I'm I'm
but I don't
worried,
think he should have paid last year. And the issue is
but
now
he did.
the issue is now the recovery from the surgery. And so that's why I said for him, if this surgery doesn't work, right? If he's coming on the field and then he has to come back off, that's when I'm worried because then it's not about the recovery from the surgery anymore.
I'm
Everything
just worried.
coming out of the front office has been it's a recovery from the surgery.
Right. I'm worried about him just coming on the field. We
I
can
don't
worry
care
about
about
whether
that.
he's going to get on the field and back off the field once he gets on the field. But I'm worried about him getting on the field in the
But if he
first
gets
place.
on the field because he rushes it, then how is that any better? I don't see how that's going to make you feel
I'm not
better.
saying rush it. I'm just saying at some point, I don't care whether it's now or later.
You seem to. You seem to be getting
But
more
yes, I
worried
do
the
care. Let me
more.
take that back. I do care, but I question whether he's going to come back. I really do.
I get it, and we'll see. But all indications are that
We got to put something
he'll
on
be
it.
ready.
Got to put something on it.
Say what?
We got to put something on it. How
We
many
already did.
games?
I said he plays more
You
than
said
8.
over 8, right?
Yeah, I said over 8.
And I said under 8.
Yep. Yeah. Now we have to identify what that is, but
Yes, we do.
yeah. But even if he's on the pup list, I still think that I'm still feeling pretty decent about my bet. Anyway, okay.
Worried. Although they
Now,
seem
in
to say
other
Mike
news,
Jarrell looked good though. I did see that Mike Jarrell looked good.
yeah, my God,
Hey,
he's pushing. Guess what? And he's pushing Stone Forsythe. No one's talking about Stone Forsythe. Everybody's talking about Mike Jarrell. That's all
you
I
know what else
heard.
about Jarrell? He's healthy.
Yeah.
He's healthy. He's gonna get on the field.
But Charles Cross seems to be looking really good. All reports are he's looking like he's taking a step forward.
I
And obviously,
do.
you got to play games, but you love the reports that you're hearing from that. I mean, we haven't heard that from about Charles Cross in a camp before. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so that's really good. I think if he can take a step forward to get to a Pro Bowl caliber kind
Mm-hmm.
of player, that would be huge for this offensive line. It really would, especially when you add in Connor Williams. And I'm spending so much time on the offensive line because I really think that this offense will go as they go. And then we saw that last year, in my opinion. Yep. So I'm super I'm excited about that. I'm higher on the Abe Lucas thing than you are. We got Connor Williams now. Are there questions at left guard and right guard? To me, yes. But I think that if we've got enough at the other positions, I think eventually with continuity and with scheming, I think they
Mm-hmm.
can work around that.
I'd say there's a plan at guard. Whether the most talented player in Haynes is going to play right away or not, we don't know. But there's a plan at guard, right? You've got an old grizzled veteran in Tomlinson. You've got a young, developing, big run blocking guard in Bradford. You've got the dude out of Utah that they drafted. You've got there's a plan in place, and I appreciate that. And I will say with Cross, that was my dude.
That's your guy.
That's my guy.
That's
And
your guy.
and
You're all pro guy. We'll see if that
yes,
happens.
my
But
all pro guy. But if left tackle isn't a worry, if Gino can drop back without worrying about the pass rush on that side, that's going to be so huge for this offense, right? And the other part that gives me confidence and that actually helps me be a little bit more confident in Fant is, is knowing that Ryan Grubb is the type of coach who's willing to give help, right?
yeah.
And is willing to and wants to keep the quarterback upright. It's important to give his quarterback time.
Yep.
And so, does that take the tight end out of the pattern sometimes? Probably. Does that mean that the back isn't in the pattern sometimes and he's chipping? Probably. But, I'd rather see that than the old Mike Martz system of like, we're going to do 5 wide and no backs, and we're just going to get rid of the ball before you can hit my quarterback, right? That's what he used to do with Kurt Warner. And I like the opposite approach. So I don't know. I've got more confidence, I think, now than I have. The addition of Connor Williams, Charles Cross, taking it seriously, all those things, the depth at guard, spending a high pick at guard. they obviously the line is the priority,
Yeah.
and that's my kind of football.
Yep. We're moving in the right direction. Completely agree.
Mhm.
So your guys looking good. I can't I can't continue doing this podcast without talking about my guy. Artie Burns is the talk of camp. And I just want to plant my flag and remind people that I've been on Artie Burns Island by myself for a long time. And now people are starting to get on board. What's happened is, for those people who don't have context, Artie Burns has been a talk of camp. What they've done is they moved him inside at nickel, and he seems to really thrive in that role to the point
Mhm.
that since Artie Burns is doing so well, when the training camp started, Devin Witherspoon was getting a lot of reps at nickel, almost exclusively at
Mhm.
nickel. And since the immersion of Artie Burns, they've got Witherspoon playing a lot more on the outside, traveling with wide receivers, that sort of thing, because they trust Artie. So shout out to my guy who's crawled up from the bottom of the barrel.
He's a
Tino,
first round pick. Get out of here. He was a first round pick.
yeah, but everybody wrote him off. Come on now. We know he was like Gino. He didn't write back though. He didn't write. Artie Burns didn't
Wait
write
till
back.
he gets cut. Wait
He's
till he
not
gets
getting
cut.
cut. I actually think a lot of people, reporters, think he's pretty much a lock to make the roster at this point because he's that reliable of a nickel and gives them much more versatility where you're not always expecting Witherspoon in the nickel. And I think that's going to matter a lot to Mike McDonald.
Yep.
That's just that versatility is key. So he might have wherever when I thought that Trey Brown would be the lock, and I think Trey Brown still will make this team, but I think Artie Burns has got a better shot at making the roster than Trey Brown, to be frank, just because of that, just because of the value of the role. Mike McDonald seems to value that as kind of
Mhm.
what he's the chess piece almost that he's going to build everything else around. And so he's got to
Mhm.
make sure that if Witherspoon goes out, he's got a quality backup at that position. And that's what Artie Burns is.
I love the idea. So we talked about the Kyle Hamilton role in that Mike McDonald defense and how he turned Kyle Hamilton really. Hamilton's talented, yes, but he turned
Yes.
him into like the queen of a chessboard, right?
Right.
And utilized him on the blitz, utilized him near the line of scrimmage, like really was able to kind of um, make it a mystery as to where he was playing and utilize his physical talents, to the best of his ability. And the idea that he would have that piece in Witherspoon, who can cover outside, right? We all know that can cover in the slot, can blitz, can create havoc. That's cool, and that wasn't going to happen unless they found someone else who could play in the slot. We
Yes.
know Trey Brown is outside corner. We
Mhm.
know that he should be playing in man, right? Even though he's a little bit undersized, we know that's the best place for him.
Mhm.
Obviously, Woolen, that's the best place for him. But to have some interchangeability, the other thing is someone's getting hurt, right? At some point.
Right.
So now you have someone, if Burns, can indeed play the slot, you've got someone who can now if someone gets hurt, you have three quality corners still. Assuming Trey Brown is still great in man, assuming Artie Burns can play the slot, you have a good set of corners regardless of whether someone's hurt. And that's different than what we've been used to. And I think the reason why Burns is still in the NFL is everyone knew he had talent. He just wasn't, playing up to that ability. And Mike McDonald seems like the type of coach that can get that out of somebody. So I think it's awesome. And
Yeah.
I flipped you stuff about Artie Burns before, but at Miami, University of Miami was great, and he was a first round pick and of the Steelers, I believe, and
Mhm.
bounced
Yep.
around a bit, but clearly the physical talent is there. And Mike McDonald, like I said, is the type of coach that can get it out of him.
Definitely. No, no, definitely for sure. So
Mhm.
I'm definitely excited about that. There's been a lot of talk about how good this cornerback room is. In fact, today
Mhm.
I heard that the talk of the town was Carlton Johnson. If I think I'm saying that correctly, he was an undrafted free agent, and apparently he had about 5 pass breakups in practice today. I mean, that's just how deep this cornerback room is going, and
Okay.
it's exciting to hear. There was, when camp first started, a trend of the offense pretty much winning, dominating the day. That seems to
Mhm.
have flipped on its head ever since the pads have come on, and this team has come to life. And they really do. You get the sense from Mike McDonald's comments from the reporting that despite how well they're doing, they're just getting started. And so,
Right.
to me, that sounds like the defense is as advertised and might be better than even I anticipated, because I did leave some room that they might take a while to sort of get acclimated. This defense might come in hot just with the talent and the
Mm-hmm.
scheme alone. It's really hard for me not to kind of hype up the expectations in my mind with what I'm hearing in training camp, because the cornerbacks are showing out. The D line seems to be heating up from all
Mm-hmm.
current reports. Mike Morris is kind of coming to life, which is something that I absolutely love to hear.
Mm-hmm.
And man, then Draymond Jones hasn't even played for some reason. And so I'm just super excited about what this defense can be. And it might be the offense that takes a while to come along. And I
Mm-hmm.
think everybody's assumed that the offensive will hit the ground running, but it is. I mean, Mike McDonald has NFL experience. And
Mm-hmm.
and and Ryan Grubb does not. And so it would not surprise me at this point, given what we've heard, if it did take the offense a little bit. I mean, the offensive line still has pieces that they're putting together. Will the offense be a little slower to start? Maybe.
Right.
But it seems like the defense is ready to carry the water.
Mm-hmm. Well, and Gino's been hurt, right? And so
Yeah.
getting your quarterback acclimated and understanding a new offense is tough. The other thing is, I know there's a lot of audibles and movement in Mike McDonald's defense. There's still defense is still, attacking and reacting, right? And whereas the offense is learning this, learning play after play after play. And
Right.
I think it's natural that that's the case. But from everything we've heard, the cool thing is, again, Tariq Woolen has been a star
Yep.
and looks to be all the way back to where he was when he was a rookie. I
Yep.
don't think anyone is, there's no half stepping with Mike McDonald. And I think everybody knows that. And so you got to come ready to go. Evidently he really pushed on Byron Murphy after minicamp to get in shape
Yep.
and to be ready to go, right? And they said his first step is insane.
Yeah.
And he's by far the quickest D lineman. And those sorts of things are, I think, a product of the culture and the leadership of Mike McDonald, that he's just not taking anything but 100% from everybody. And the Seahawks needed that. That's the contrast that they needed after Pete Carroll. I love Pete, but Pete let a lot of stuff go because that was his personality.
Yep.
And Mike McDonald lets nothing go.
Yep. Yeah. To your point, I have withheld I've been optimistic about the hire, but I've withheld, given some room that maybe maybe it doesn't work the way I
Mm-hmm.
hope. But man, hearing Mike McDonald speak in some of these press conferences, particularly, he just had one with Brock and Salk that I thought was really good.
Mm-hmm.
He had so many. It was a small thing that I noticed that let me know I think we got a great head coach.
Mm-hmm.
It's all these like sayings that he has, and
Mm-hmm.
like in like mental, like I guess he has a mental sweat. I think he was naming some random, like, he just has all of these neat
Isms.
phrases, and like it's so clear in his mind that he's got not just the scheme but the culture, and he's got, we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna call this and we're
Yep.
gonna call this that, and it,
Yep.
it may seem so small, but to have that clear of a vision, that in that detail, you've thought it out that well, you're able to communicate it to your players, you got things and sayings and mindsets and mantras you want them to buy into that are your own. And it's hard to come behind Pete Carroll, who had a ton of them
Mm-hmm.
himself. To me, that gives me a ton of confidence that they got the right guy. And there might be some bumps along the road, some ups
Yep.
and some downs that you never know until things get tough, what a guy's really made of ultimately.
Right.
But I just feel like he's made of the right stuff. And I'm not sure, even if for some random reason this does not work out, I'm
Mm-hmm.
not sure there was a better hire that they could have done than Mike McDonald.
Uh, yes, 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 and yes. It's the interesting part to me is the demand for structure from him, right? There's structure. We talked about it all last season. There's a clear vision for every player at every position, right? And now it's just about coloring it in. And whereas Pete was, very free form and allowed his players, a lot of leeway, and that approach really did work incredibly well at times, but there was time, it was time for a new voice.
Yep.
And I think that the contrast in the two, in the structure that Mike Macdonald brings is a phenomenal fit at this particular point in time. And I agree. He was the one we both, I think, wanted when we talked about the
Yep.
potential coaching hires. And I think it's proven so far to be really amazing.
Yeah, 100%. To to your point about the contrast between Pete Carroll, I just think it's a different generation. NIL money, and I'm not sure you can be as free form with guys, but I like that he seems to be balanced enough to joke with the guys, even though he does have a really dry sense of humor, or to try to make things fun. Like one thing that I loved is this championship belt concept that they've come up with in camp, where guys can win and walk around with championship WWE championship belts around. I mean, that's
Right.
fun, and it breeds competition, which was Pete's thing, but it does it in a very unique way.
Right.
It doesn't seem like the guys feel it's not like a Joe Judge situation, right? Where Joe
Right.
Judge came in and he
Right.
was like, my way or the highway, it's military, it's
Yep.
he has that structure, but he's got a little bit of new school about him, understanding
Mm-hmm.
players' psyche, understanding needing to
Mm-hmm.
connect with players, understanding that they do need to let off a little bit of steam and have a little bit of fun. Canceling a practice here, saying we did a good job. Let's just chill out, or we're just gonna do a mental day. What he called it, ACT practice or something,
Mm-hmm.
like a mental day. I
Right.
like that, and these players seem bought in.
Yep. Well, it's look at the Ravens players' reaction to when he left, and listen to what the Ravens players said about him. It's
Yeah.
clear how beloved he is, right? And yes, your schemes have to work, and yes, you have to win, and yes, this defense has to be great in order for this to be a success. But everything points to him succeeding, and I don't think he expects anything but.
Yep. Completely agree.
Mhm.
Agreed. Okay. Couple other points I wanted to hit on. It'd be hard not to mention that Julian Love was extended. That
Mhm.
was a controversial move amongst the Seahawk fan base.
Mhm.
I was for it. I think it's a good deal. I ultimately ended up being, I believe the original amount that was brought up was a 3-year extension that would be at about $11 million per year. But it seems like that what guarantee that's not the guarantee money. I believe the guarantee money is around $9 million per year, which puts him just outside of the top 10
Mhm.
currently, and that's just at this rate. And so that's something I put that out on Twitter. It's something I thought was a good move.
Mhm.
What are your thoughts on the Julian Love extension?
I, to me, stability is important, and it's going to be important at safety because I don't know that, we're going to see Rayshawn Jenkins and Kavon Wallace and those guys for multiple years. And so
Yeah,
if you believe that Julian Love is your free safety, um, you sign him, right? I think, like I said, I think stability is important. I also have to believe that, again, Mike Macdonald's fingerprints have to be on that. He had to
yeah,
have gone to John Schneider and said, hey, man, like this dude is a baller and I want him to be a part of this defense long term. Let's see if he'll sign, right? They weren't, I don't think it's a coincidence that he spent some time in camp with Mike Macdonald before he got that extension. They may have said to him, hey, we're thinking about extending you, but coach has got to get eyes on you first in camp to help make that decision. Whatever the case is, they clearly believe in him. He has pedigree. I believe he was a second round pick out of Notre Dame by the Giants, something
yeah,
like that.
something like that.
Um, he clearly has talent. Not that where you're picked matters that much, but sorry, round 4 by the Giants in 19. But yeah, I like it. And I think he played better than people gave him credit for last year.
Yeah,
The other thing is if he's playing a true free safety, that can be very valuable if you can count on him to be consistently in the right place. And I feel like it's easier to find a second safety who's serviceable than it is as strong safety than it is to find a free safety who you can rely on over the top in the defense if that's indeed going to be his role. So I like it. I'm not the hugest Julian Love fan, but I think it's smart. And if you're not, the thing I like is you're going to get good play out of someone, and you're not spending $9 bajillion at safety to get it. That part I really, really like a lot.
I think we're in lockstep on that one. Like it's not like I'm in love with Julian Love. I just I think it was a good move. I think it was a solid move. I think it was, like you said, a smart move. I
Mhm.
don't think that they paid top of the market. I mean, in 2 or 3 years, he's gonna be probably one of the cheapest safeties in the league, to be honest. And I know that the safety market doesn't move a ton, but the top guy right now is getting made $21 million. I mean, it's not anything close. I mean, you're not paying outrageous numbers. I think that ultimately what you're going to get out of Julian Love is he's a jack of all trades. Yes, he's a free safety, but I think Mike McDonald plans on moving him around all around the field, and that is really huge. Um, I think that what he brings is they've talked a lot about his ability to communicate to the team. They see him as sort of the calming force. I think almost he seems to be in lockstep with Mike McDonald. They seem to have a real symbiotic relationship that I think will go really far when it comes to how this team comes together and how fast this team comes together. So that is a huge, huge deal. A lot of people are upset about paying for safeties, and I understand the traumatic. I think that's also a little bit of residue from the Pete Carroll
Yes.
era, the traumatic of
Yes.
like, we're paying a safety, we're paying a safety. That really seems to be the people who disliked it. That seems to be their reaction. I
Mhm.
understand, but I do not think at all that this is the same thing. You can't, this is a team that plans on using three safety packages often. They
Mhm.
didn't pay all three guys. I mean, you can't, I know, yes, there are talented guys that you can draft at that position, completely understand, but I don't think you can just keep rotating three different guys in. Like you said, you
Mhm.
need some kind of continuity, and
Mhm.
Julian Love seems to be, yes, a jack of all trades, but he also seems to be the key communicator for the team. My guess is he's the green dot from everything that I've heard.
Mhm.
And that it matters a lot. We know that that's, but I mean, he's gonna be feeling the shoes about the way. That's a big deal
Yep.
on this team and this particular scheme. Mike Donald emphasizes communication so much, and so
Mhm.
excited for him. And I hope that he can, I think even if he gives you just pretty good play, you know what I mean? Like I think that's great.
If he's a consistent center fielder,
Yep. Well, he's gonna move
he
all over the
gets
place. He's
right,
gonna
but he
move all
gets
over.
he gets the defense in the right position.
Hmm.
He's consistent. He may give up some big plays to elite receivers. That's fine. But to you, like you said, if he's like a average to the slightest bit above average at free safety, that's great. And there's continuity there. There's a communicator. It just like I said, I think Mike McDonald had to have seen all he needed to see to
Yep.
sign off on him getting an extension.
And I don't think they're going to be doing that for him. Now, you'll hear me criticize. They go off
Mhm.
and they try to do this a bunch of times. All right. Now, I
Mhm.
do think they should get some youth at the position. I do think that the goal is to go cheaper. But
Mhm.
if Julian Love is the cap cost wise,
Right.
then consider me satisfied.
That works.
All
Well,
right.
we also should say we may have this on the list, but um, Marquise Blair,
Yes.
who they
Great.
brought back, he's only 27, and we saw some huge explosive plays from him a couple of years ago. And if he's the kind of guy who is worth taking a shot on as that second safety because of the explosiveness, right? He and I think that Mike McDonald can get him to be a little bit more assignment sound and make better decisions at safety. I I think that having someone like Love next to him provides him stability. And I think this scheme is going to help Blair. So as long as we were talking about safety, I wanted to bring him up.
Yeah.
And I know he might be the third on the depth chart at strong safety,
Definitely.
but I love seeing him play. I loved watching Marquise Blair play, and I'm
Same.
really excited that he's back.
Same. Yeah. I was a huge fan of Marquise Blair, and I really kind of felt like he got a poor deal about it. John kind of showed his hand that was a John pick.
Yep.
And Pete never really seemed to want to give the guy, yes, he struggled with injuries, but there were opportunities, even when he wasn't struggling with injuries, where we're kind of going, why don't we see more Marquise Blair? And I remember going, like, why aren't we playing him? And it's not like they had a ton of great options at that particular time. And Pete never really fully gave him a shot. There are rumors that he didn't have the right headspace at the time in terms of studying the
Mhm.
game and understanding that
Mhm.
probably was a turnoff to Pete. I get that, but I think that, like you said, this new scheme, it's Mike McDonald's a good teacher. And I think that Marquise Blair's learned. He's matured. He's had some ups and downs in this league, and he's been given a maybe a third or fourth chance
Right.
in this league. I think he's going to take it seriously. At least I hope he does, and that would be amazing. I mean, even if he ends up being a practice squad guy, I just love I love to have him around, and I think that I mean I hope that maybe he can work himself into an opportunity, maybe even next year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He's a talent.
Yes,
He's a
most
talent.
definitely.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. I'm trying to think. The only other thing I know for sure that I wanted to cover is the third running back spot seems to be really interesting. Kenny McIntyre
Mm.
seems to be losing ground.
Yep.
Uh, seems to be losing ground, man. I think was it George Halani? Is his first name
Yep.
George?
Yep.
I think Kalani's gonna push McIntosh in the end. Kenny just doesn't seem to be bringing it. It's unfortunate to hear, but I'm saying let the best man win, especially that
Mm-hmm.
running back position. Halani seems to have had some real highlights in
Mm-hmm.
training camp. And Ryan Grubb, when asked about it today, mentioned Halani first over
Yep.
Kenny McIntosh. Mike McDonald said that he's being pushed by George Halani. Kenny McIntosh is being pushed by George Halani. That's exciting, man. That third running back spot has always been given to someone, not
Right.
always, in recent years, has just been given to someone kind of slotted in, not really competitive. If you were drafted, then it's given to you. We want to try to take advantage of that. And I really think that given the running back injuries, they kind of suffered because of it. I don't think that the running back room was always as strong as it could have been. There
Mm-hmm.
were some guys off the street that I liked better than some of the guys we've had over the
And
years at
DJ
third down.
Dallas.
Yeah. And no offense to Travis Homer, but he, as great as he was in pass protection, he couldn't do much else.
Right.
Like they had these specialist guys who were just
Yep.
good at one thing, and you really just love to see a well-rounded room
Right.
at the running back position.
So I think the depth chart was released. The latest depth chart was released, I think today, and Holani was actually the third running back listed with McIntosh fourth.
Mhm.
Um, I'll take credit for George Holani when he was
Yep,
first signed. I said
called
that's
it.
the dude. I think he's going to make the team.
Yep, called it.
You're right though. So Holani's listed as 5'11", 210. And I think he might be even a little heavier or stockier than that.
Mhm.
And McIntosh is a little smaller. It's certainly a lot faster than Holani is, but I like the idea of having, if it's Holani, Charbonnet, and Walker, all three of those guys can catch the ball a little bit. All three of those guys, if they were your number one back, you could give them the ball 15, 18 times in a
Mhm.
game and
Yep,
not and know that they're going to hold up, right? I don't know if Holani is going to average 5 yards a carry, but he's
right.
going to hold up. He's going to get the yards that are there. And I think that he's a very solid football player. And I also think that fits what McDonald wants to do, right? He wants solid football players who have some interchangeability. And again, Holani, if he had to start for 2 games, it's not the worst case scenario. Whereas if McIntosh is starting for 2 games, it might be time to chuck the ball 45 times because you don't know if he's going to be able to carry the load. So I like it. I think I'm excited about it. I wonder too if McIntosh's injury history
Yeah,
is catching up to him a
I
little bit
wanted to.
because
Yeah,
if he doesn't have that same explosiveness that he had at the beginning, in the beginning of his career at Georgia,
yeah,
he's just not really an NFL player at that point.
right.
And you've got this really, like I said, this really solidly built, tough running back in Holani coming in. It's very easy to see him being the number 3. I'm excited. I like him as a player. I really do like him as a player a lot.
I think Kenny McIntosh on the practice squad is incredible. Like if
Yes.
Money rightfully beats him out and they
Yes.
can retain him and put him on practice squad, I
Yes.
I would still absolutely. I mean, I'm a fan of McIntosh's upside,
Mm-hmm.
but when Ryan Grubb was asked about it, he mentioned pass pro is something that
Mm-hmm.
Halani is excelling at and that Kenny
Stout.
McIntosh needs to work on. And so,
Mm-hmm.
me that tells me that they're looking for their pass pro for more than just their offensive lineman, right?
Yep.
And so that seems like it's going to be a big deal. And if that's the case, I'm not saying it's impossible to improve or overcome that. Obviously, right
Mm-hmm.
now they've given it to McIntosh for now, but I'd be surprised if at the end of camp, Halani wouldn't on this roster and McIntosh wouldn't cut him. Maybe they keep 4. But
Right.
it seems to me that Helani is the guy.
Right. And think about this too. You talked a bit about, max protect or keeping an extra guy in to protect. It makes sense if you have three dynamite wide receivers, right? How many guys do you need in the pattern if your three receivers are really good and one of them's elite? And if that's the case and you need a running back to chip or to double team or whatever it is, then you want that guy who's more stout. You want the guy who excels at pass protection
Mhm.
and has, reliable hands if he needs to release, that sort of thing. And that seems to me to be more of who George Holani is. Not that McIntosh can't do it. McIntosh is that explosive, get him on the perimeter,
Right.
the ball in his hands in space type of dude. And I don't know that that's what they're looking for from their running backs. Maybe some from K9, but that's it, right?
I
The
think
other
that's a
guy,
great point.
what's
That's
that?
that's a great point because before the JSN pick, I think, and back a couple of years ago, yeah, or even a year, I mean, a year ago, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, we needed receiving options. We wanted to include the running backs more in the passing game, but I agree
Right.
with you. Things have changed. Not only is it a new regime, but I think even if the regime had not changed, I think I would still want to value the pass pro. At this point, I just think I would want to take advantage of your wide receivers and Noah Fant and feed those guys
Yep.
and then build everything else around them.
Yep. Well, that's also what, his offense at Washington had a lot of that, right?
Mhm.
They weren't checking down to Dennis Johnson or Dylan Johnson. This was, let me get the ball to these three top wide receivers, right? The number of targets that Odunze had was phenomenal. And they still had Jalen McMillan and Jalen Polk. And so it's even Devin Cope was drafted, the tight end, one of the tight ends. And then Westover is on the Seahawks. So I don't know. For me, I think Holani makes this team. And again, I'm excited because I think he's a player. I think he's a
Yeah,
player.
yeah, for sure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I think those are the main things I wanted to hit on for sure. Anything that stood out to you that we haven't covered?
I think I have a little bit of worry or trepidation about Geno Smith being hurt and missing what he's missed. Um, I I know he's smart, but just with the new system being installed and all that, I wish that wouldn't have happened. But no, I think it's all moving in a really positive direction, and I'm so excited to have a line where they're paying attention and they care about on the offensive line and a defense that looks to be explosive and nasty and to see a coach getting the most out of his players, even if this is like a try hard team that goes 10-7 or even 9-8, but is moving in the right direction and has a lot of positive momentum and positive energy. And you're starting to see, the top of the potential from Tariq Woolen and those guys. That's to me, that's a huge step in the right direction. So I'm pumped. I think there's so much reason to be excited. And I know you like to bring this up. I do wonder if it sounds like there's hints coming from the offense that some of the things that Ryan Grubb is installing are really, really cool and I think really going to surprise. And I wonder how much of that is going to be DK Metcalf. I wonder if Metcalf is featured in a way and put in positions to succeed in a way that he hasn't. And if he becomes a top 3, top 5 wide receiver in the NFL statistically, because he has a new coordinator and a new coach.
I think that's exactly what from all accounts on camp, that's exactly what's happened. They
Mm-hmm.
someone said they saw him run in the backfield.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah. So to me, that says it all. They said DK was not in the same place twice. I heard that he was all over the field in that cornerbacks. They had Rick Woolen traveling with them. They had
Mm-hmm.
Devin Witherspoon traveling with them, which speaks to his movement at all points. And I can't say that I love that enough. I mean, truly, I think it's the best thing. I mean, DK, what have we always said about DK? The great news is he is going to help bring down a safety. But
Yep.
if you don't know where he's going to be, then you can actually take advantage of his skill set. He's been a
Imagine,
mentor.
yeah. Imagine you got a corner who's 5'10 and 185 pounds matched up with him because he's in motion or because you don't know where he's going to line up. They
Right.
line him up in the same place every time. Imagine that he's matched up on that guy. Or he's in the backfield and he's matched up against a safety or, heaven forbid, an inside linebacker, right?
Yes.
I think a smart team does that where you take your players and you put in, the matchups are super important. And the old regime did not pay attention to matchups on either side of the ball.
Right.
And to me, that's the name of the game. All the great offensive coordinators are trying to create matchups. They did that at UW where the receivers would go in motion and end up in the backfield. That was something you saw a lot. And then they would catch screen passes out of the backfield and that sort of thing. And if DK's the guy doing that, and DK's the guy who's in motion at times, that's super cool. Because really, you just want to get the ball in his hands.
No, beast mode, but
Yes.
beastly. Not beast mode, but still right. Very, very cool.
Well, he's a beast, but he's a beast at wide receiver, right? He's the most difficult, probably in many ways. Physically, he's certainly the most difficult cover in the NFL because of the speed and the strength. So I don't know. It's easy to be excited when you have a new coach and a newfound enthusiasm and as much positivity as running through camp. We'll see what happens, week one, but it's fun. It's fun to be on this train. It's fun. Change can be fun at times. I think the messaging and the identity was a bit stale. We all admit that. As much as I love Pete, it's time, and it's going to be a blast. It's going to be a blast.
Absolutely. Well, we have some football to talk about next week. Seahawks will take on the Chargers, I believe, on Saturday. So super excited about actually being able to see some of these things in motion. Really excited about looking at the scheme. I mean, I know we're probably not going to see any starters, and I'm fine with that. Bubble wrap everybody at this point. But really excited to see the concepts more than anything on both sides of the ball and see who can step up and provide some quality depth for this team. So, man, Tino, tell people where they can find you. We're going to get us out of here.
Ethos Mariners. You can go check out my Mariners podcast a couple times a week. Mariners losing Detroit Tigers 3-1 last time I looked. Not so much fun. You can find me on Twitter. My personal account is TINOJR20. Just again, getting ready for college football. Did pick up the college football game. Have been playing it way too much. But yeah, Mariners, Seahawks, Michigan Wolverines. It's prime sports time, and I couldn't be more excited.
Absolutely. Be sure to follow the show at Ethos Seahawks. We'll be back at you with a report from what happened from the first preseason game. But until then,
go Hawks.